Good afternoon and welcome to the February 12th, 2026 edition of Office Hours presented by the Maryland Center for Collegiate Financial Wellness. My name is Dr. Tisa Kennedy, and I thank you so much for joining me today. Now, before I get into all the questions that have come in from our community, I just want to share a bit of information about the center, a quick disclaimer, some updates, and then the questions that have come in about student loans and financial aid. And a lot has been going on. The questions have been pretty common, so we've condensed them down to just 5 for this episode. So let's get into a bit about the center. The Maryland Center for Collegiate Financial Wellness is also known as MCFW, was founded in 2021 with quite an ambitious vision for all of Maryland's college and career school students. And that was that they would be able to achieve these 6 pillars of collegiate financial well-being. Those pillars are being creditworthy, ready, resilient, empowered, successful, and thriving. And if that sounds like a mission or vision that you'd like to learn more about, please do visit us online at MCCFW.org to learn more about the center, our programs, and ways that you can support. Now, this particular program is called Office Hours, and Office Hours is presented for informational purposes only. So I have to put out the disclaimer there. The information presented during this broadcast does not constitute personal, legal, or financial advice. We do the very best that we can to bring you the most up-to-date information possible and keep things accurate, but there are a lot of factors involved in making decisions. And in addition to information that you receive from reliable outlets like the Maryland Center for Collegiate Financial Wellness, you need to take in information from your lenders, your servicers, the people in your household, if they're affected or involved in your financial decisions. You have a lot to take into account before you make decisions. So please do not take the information that's presented here today as personalized legal or financial advice. Everyone needs to have their own repayment strategy that's based on their circumstances and their loans. All right, now that that's out of the way, I want to give you a quick update about what's going on with the center, and then we'll get into the questions that have come in from the community. So first, for some updates, I want to talk a bit about what's happening in Maryland, and that is the state's legislative session is now underway. And we are happy to be supporting a few bills during this session and advocating for those bills. And I'm going to have to get a piece of paper and read these bill numbers because there are quite a few. So the first bill has to do with informed enrollment, providing students with information about outcomes for people who have been in programs in schools. And this bill is House Bill number 538. It's also going to be cross-filed in the Senate Bill 430. That is the Informed Enrollment Act. And I testified in support of this bill last year. I'm supporting it again this year. It's not requiring schools to do anything new. It's just taking existing information and making sure that it's placed in a prominent space so that prospective students can go to one place and find information about job placement, debt outcomes for students who have been previously enrolled in the program, graduation rates, taking all of that information that is useful for making a decision and placing that in a place so that prospective students can see it clearly, and also circulating that information across campus so that these different touch points on the same campus can be giving out consistent information to students who are making a really important and very expensive decision. All right, the next bill we're supporting is House Bill 877, which is cross-filed in the Senate this year as Senate Bill 268, and that bill is about institutional debt. Institutional debt is just like it sounds. It's a debt that a student owes directly to an institution. So we're not talking about student loans. We're talking about things like payment plans or balances that are owed directly from the student to the school. And this bill would support transparency by requiring schools to report on that debt to the state each year. And a third bill that we're supporting is House Bill 676, which is cross-filed in the Senate as Senate Bill 518. And that is for the Maryland Financial Empowerment Center Network, and it would establish a pilot program. There are several financial empowerment centers across the state. We have an excellent one on the campus of Prince George's Community College, and they provide vital services to Marylanders. So this bill would help establish a pilot program to expand that network of financial empowerment centers and give more access to Marylanders for these services that they truly need. All right, so we've got the Annapolis business out of the way. I do want to share an update on MCFW and our student loan strategy advising services. For a couple of years, we were able to provide those services pro bono, free, to people who were coming from mostly Prince George's County and Baltimore City because we had grant funding dedicated to those populations. We also had some funding that was left up, for anyone to make appointments for free, but those funding opportunities, those projects expired. So now we still offer student loan strategy advising services. However, it's a fee for service model. Now, we've always encouraged borrowers to get free information first. Go to their lender, go to their servicer, their trusted resources, and do their best to make a decision that fits for them. However, things can get confusing sometimes. And in the absence of grant funding, we are continuing our student loan strategy advising services, but we're now using a fee for service model. So if you have looked at those free sources of information, you've taken inventory of your loans, you're still little bit confused or unsure about what to do next, please do consider the center a resource, and you can scan the QR code that's on the screen to book a student loan strategy advising session. We'll take a look at your loans, review your options for forgiveness and benefits, and assist you with completing any applications. You can use the QR code, or you can visit us online at MCCFW.org for scheduling. All right. Now let's get into the meat of office hours, which is the questions that have come in about student aid and student loans from our community. The first question is, my loans were just transferred from Mohila to Ed Financial. I haven't had a payment in 2 years. Do I just wait? And I'd like to share a bit more background for context before I answer this question. So the borrower heard back and said, as a result of a court action affecting income-driven repayment, Ed Financial Services, at the direction of the Department of Education, has changed the date by which you need to recertify your current IDR plan to February 16th of 2027. Now, the borrower has said that this message came to them in October. They've been out of graduate school since April of 2024. They're currently enrolled in the SAVE plan, which is still actively, those loans are still actively in forbearance. So the question is, do I just wait? Like, what do I do in this situation? I'm at a total loss as to what to do. So it's a great question. And in terms of what to do, you really got to think about your repayment strategy and whether or not it involves forgiveness. Now, before I give answers about for when forgiveness is involved versus when forgiveness is off the table, I just want to state a fact here, and that is that several income-driven repayment plans are going to go away. SAVE, ICR, and Pay As You Earn are going to sunset. So we know that those plans are going away, and this borrower is currently enrolled in SAVE. They're going to have to make a decision at some point. But the decision depends on whether their repayment strategy involves some form of loan forgiveness. So let's talk about the case in which forgiveness is involved. Keep in mind, if you're pursuing forgiveness, time that's spent in the SAVE forbearance does not count toward forgiveness. I don't necessarily agree with that, but that's just what it is. The time does not count. Right now, ICR, Pay As You Earn, and IBR are still available, and they are eligible for forgiveness. So you could switch out of the SAVE plan and into ICR Pay or IBR, depending on eligibility, to get back on track for forgiveness. Some relevant dates you need to remember, though. There are changes coming as a result of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, and that is that a new income-driven repayment plan is becoming available. That plan is called RAP. That plan is supposed to become available in July of 2026. ICR, Pay As You Earn, and IBR will still be around, but they're, with the exception of IBR, the others are going to sunset. So by July 2028, the only income-driven options that will remain are income-based repayment and the repayment assistance plan. So if you're pursuing forgiveness, you need to make sure that you're enrolled in a repayment plan that qualifies for forgiveness. SAVE does not qualify. So if you're in SAVE, you're pursuing forgiveness, and you want to get back on the road to forgiveness ASAP, then you would need to change repayment plans. And IBR is the safest plan because that one will still be here after the OB3 provisions have been implemented. Now, what if you're not pursuing forgiveness? Well, if you're not pursuing forgiveness, you have several factors to think about. Your daily cash flows, what you want to do with those, and how much you can afford to dedicate towards your student loans. For some people that know that forgiveness is off the table and they have enough cash to pay some loans off, one option is to make payments during this forbearance. A forbearance is the time when you're not required to pay, but you could take advantage of that and make payments anyway. If you're interested in you're trying to save the overall amount of money you end up paying, perhaps your strategy could be to target the loan with the highest interest and or highest balance until there's a clear path forward for this SAVE settlement. We know SAVE is going away. It's just that the information that's out there isn't exactly clear about what borrowers should do and exactly when they should do it. But I hope that this borrower takes away that the decision point really is about what your strategy is. And the strategy is something you have to choose for yourself. If forgiveness is involved, the path becomes more clear. If forgiveness is not involved, you've got to figure out how fast you want to pay this off, which loans you want to pay off first. Or do you want to wait for the new income driven repayment plan to come out in July and see what that will look like? You have a lot more choices when forgiveness is not on the table. So think about that overall strategy. And once the decision of strategy has been made, then you know more about the direction that you should go in with this loan or these loans. All right, let's move on to our next question. That question is, where did my loan count go? Well, to this borrower, you are not alone because a lot of people have that question. Again, I want to provide context here. The full question is, how do I find out how many payments I have made toward my student loans and how many more are required for forgiveness? I've been making payments via IBR for years. I'm currently on the SAVE plan. I will likely apply to another IDR plan so I can make the additional payments required for forgiveness. I consolidated my loans in 2024 so that I could be eligible for the recount. I've contacted the Department of Education, and they say they don't currently have the information and to get it from my servicer. I've contacted my servicer, and they say they don't have the information, and the only information they have is of the couple of payments I made after consolidating before we couldn't make any more payments because of SAVE. The servicer says they're not required to have that information. What do I do? The Department of Education tells me to ask my servicer. My servicer tells me to ask the Department of Education help. This is a really unfortunate situation. It's also unfortunate that it is common. Information is all over the place, and sometimes that information is incomplete, and it's very hard to make an informed, solid decision when you don't have all the information available. So here's what we suggest. First is acknowledging a fact. There was an IDR payment counter that many people were able to see on studentaid.gov, and that presented an official accounting of payments that had been made on income-driven repayment plans or those that had been counted as eligible towards IDR forgiveness. But the fact is that official IDR payment counter is no longer visible to the end user. Now, there have been a couple of ways that people have gone kind of behind the scenes of the end user experience on studentaid.gov to view a loan tracker. And some people refer to it as the hidden loan tracker. You can log into studentaid.gov, and once you're all the way in, you can try copying and pasting this address. We'll put it in the chat so that it is clickable. And if this is successful for you and you're actually able to see the text, you'll see that there's a huge amount of text, but it's broken down by each loan and award ID that you've received. And you can see the qualifying payment count and the remaining payments until forgiveness. Now, I must issue another, give some context here. One is that the borrower that submitted this question was already enrolled in an IDR plan. So there's more, I think there's more information there about their payment counts, and pardon the typo, but also the information may not be available and it could be inaccurate. So do not take this as an official accounting that would be similar to the one you would see if the official payment counter was still there. So the smaller text that you see below represents what you might see when you're scrolling through that text of your award IDs and your loans. And if you take a look at this screen, you'll see where it says qualifying payment count 285. Then it says forgiveness required payments 300. So if this person has 285 payments that qualify toward IDR forgiveness, 300 payments are required. That means that they have forgiveness remaining payments that you see there of 15. So this unofficial kind of text data can show you at least a ballpark of what you where you stand payment wise when it comes to forgiveness by way of IDR. But just please keep it in mind is this information may not be available to you when you use the link, and the information that you see may not include all of your repayment history. Great question. And again, sorry to have so many people in limbo, but this is the state that we're in. And if you try it and it works for you, please come back and let us know. We'd be delighted to hear your status. All right. So the next question is, how am I defaulted? Sharing some background here. It says, my financial aid office says I have defaulted and I cannot receive federal funds. I checked studentaid.gov and I do not have any loans indicating default. The due dates for all of my loans say 2029. How am I in default? That's a great question, and I'm puzzled for you as well, because when you log into studentaid.gov, if there's a defaulted loan, you're usually notified in a pretty big way. So let's take a look at the official answer. First, we recommend checking in with the financial aid office, and I mean checking in beyond a phone call. Maybe this is a check-in that involves scheduling an appointment, going in to sit with a financial aid counselor, having them take a look at NSLDS, or you logging into your studentaid.gov account and looking with them so that you all can be on the same page. However, the access that your school's financial aid office has, they should be able to see exactly which loans are in default and give you that information. From their side, I can't show you what it looks like from their side because I'm not a financial aid administrator anymore and I don't have access to NSLDS. However, I can show you what it looks like from the borrower's perspective. So take a look at this screen. When you log into studentaid.gov and complete the two-step verification and get to the actual dashboard, if you have a loan or multiple loans that are in default, you will be greeted with this kind of red bar section that says you have a loan that's in default, along with a button to get to the servicer and some tips for getting out of default. So if your school is seeing that you're in default somewhere and you're not seeing it, the goal is to get everyone on the same page so that you can regain your eligibility for federal funds if you're looking for assistance to pay for your current or future enrollment. So reach out to the financial aid office, schedule an appointment, sit down with them, take a look at your records, have them look at their records, and find out what the missing link is. And please let us know the outcome. All right, let's move on to the next question. That is about default again. It says, hello, I'm trying to assist my friend. Default help, please. All right, for context, I'm sharing. What are their options and next steps to get out of default? They paid toward PSLF for a while, but life happens. Any suggestions would be appreciated. Oh, yes, life happens. I definitely want to share some suggestions with you, so bear with me while I go to the next screen. All right, so glad that this friend has help. You definitely want to get out of default because the consequences of default can be severe. They can include wage garnishment, which is on hold right now, but a host of other consequences that can make your financial life very difficult and much more expensive than it needs to be. So please get out of default. And getting out of default will have benefits for your credit, but can also get you back on track to resume progress toward public service loan forgiveness. So there are two ways to get out of default. Really three, but the first one's not realistic, so I'm going to stick with these remaining two. That's a rehabilitation or consolidation. With rehabilitation of a loan, you're taking it and you're going to make a set amount of payments. They're usually low payments, but you make this set amount of payments. I believe it's for 9 months, and by the 10th month, the loan is restored to good standing. But the point is, you're taking the existing loan, you're keeping it, but you're rehabilitating it by getting back into the groove of meeting your obligations, making your payments each month. The other method is consolidation. Consolidation involves restructuring the debt altogether. And when I say consolidation, I'm talking strictly about consolidation through the federal government. When you consolidate federal student loans, your old loans are paid off and a new loan is originated for the exact same amount. So you're basically closing the door on those old loans, opening the door to a new loan with the same amount, but you're resetting the clock on everything. So you're out of default, but you're now starting off with month one, payment number one on this new loan. So you can go to studentaid.gov to confirm which loans are in default, and then you can make the decision about which path you want to take, rehabilitating the loans or consolidating the loans. Got some QR codes for you that can be helpful here. The first one is to visit myedebt.gov, and that site will help you to get your loans out of default because, again, you want to get back into good standing and you want to get back on track for PSLF. So you can go directly to that federal servicer for defaulted student loans by using the QR code on the left side of the screen. On the right side is just a link to studentaid.gov so that you can get more detailed information on how to get out of default. So you'll learn more about rehabilitation, consolidation, all that. But friend, please keep on helping your friend until they take some action steps, because default can be a very financially dangerous place to be, but it does not have to be permanent. So thanks, friend, and keep us posted on your progress. All right, let's get to our last question. That's question number 5. It is, I need to take out student loans for my upcoming semester, maybe $10,000 to $15,000. Which loans are safe to take out? Now, for the full question here, context. I need to take out the student loans for my upcoming semester at college. Nothing crazy, approximately less than $10,000 to $15,000, and $15,000 is pushing it. I'm not sure how to go about this or which loans are safe to take out and don't have crazy interest rates. Please help. I want to keep on attending school. Well, we want you to keep on attending school too. And the reality of the situation for many people is that student loans are necessary in order for them to stay in school. So when it comes to student loans, you have choices. You have federal student loans, you have private student loans. Federal student loans come from the federal government. Private or alternative loans come from lenders outside of the federal government. You're probably familiar with some of their ads. Some of the lenders that are on my radar in my circles are Sally Mae, College Ave, I think Citizens Bank. There are plenty of organizations that offer student loans. But if they're outside of the federal government, then those are considered alternative or private loans. We recommend that you borrow federal student loans before borrowing any alternative private loans. And any honest private lender will tell you the same thing. Federal student loans typically have more favorable lending terms. So it's best that you exhaust your federal eligibility before taking on private student loans. So to get access to those federal student loans, the first thing you need to do is complete the free application for federal student aid at FAFSA.gov or studentaid.gov. Now, once you've completed the FAFSA, your school will eventually retrieve it. And if everything's good, the financial aid office, if everything's complete, the financial aid office will let you know if you need to submit any other documentation. And if nothing else is required, then they'll send you what's called a financial aid offer. That financial aid offer will include usually more than one type of financial aid. It could include scholarships, grants, work study, and loans. All of those things are considered financial aid. So the offer will include those types of aid, and it will let you know how much you're eligible for to meet your needs. But just keep in mind, this information is coming from the financial aid office on your campus. It's not coming from the federal government. You complete the federal form, but your school is going to communicate directly with you about the types of financial aid that you are eligible for. So it's important to stay in touch with the financial aid office because they are your first point of contact regarding the items that are included in your financial aid offer. Now that does it for the questions, but I just want to share one tip and one resource before I go. The tip is, when it comes to federal student loans, please be proactive about exploring your repayment options. You can take a look at studentaid.gov and go to the loan simulator. The loan simulator will allow you to log in, take a look at the loans that you have, and see which repayment plans result in the most affordable payment for you, or at least view what your options are. Now, because we're in a space where some plans are going to sunset and a new plan is coming in just a few months, some of the information that you see, some of those plans may not be available to you, or they may not be available in the coming months, or at least up until July 2028, when they save, ICR, and pay will officially have to be things of the past. But you can go to the loan simulator at studentaid.gov, take a look at the options so that you are not walking into repayment completely surprised when your first payment is due. And you can scan the QR code on the screen to visit the loan simulator at studentaid.gov. All right. So that was a tip for everyone, but now I'd like to share a resource specifically for Marylanders, and that is the Office of the Student Loan Ombudsman, which is located in the state's Department of Labor. The Student Loan Ombudsman's Office is a resource for Marylanders with student loans who are experiencing issues. The Student Loan Ombudsman is not the place where you need to go before going to your servicer or your lender. The Student Loan Ombudsman serves as kind of an advocate for you to compel your servicer or your lender to resolve things, provide you with information to close the book on any of the following issues that you may be experiencing, such as failure by the servicer to communicate with the borrower, errors in crediting principal and interest payments, misapplied payments, inaccurate interest rate calculations, billing errors, loan consolidation or modification errors, and or inappropriate collection activities or tactics. Now, as always, you need to advocate for yourself first. If you're experiencing an issue with your lender or servicer, contact them first in good faith, ask questions, ask about the path to resolution, and give them a little bit of time. If nothing happens over time, and you reached out more than once and you keep on hitting the wall, please do reach out to the Student Loan Ombudsman to get yourself some extra help to kind of hopefully push things along and get you closer to resolution. But again, reach out directly to the party that you're involved with and having the problem with. If that doesn't work, then reach out to the Student Loan Ombudsman's office to try to assist and move things forward. So, as always, I thank you so much for joining me for this edition of Office Hours presented by the Maryland Center for Collegiate Financial Wellness. You can keep in touch with us by visiting us on our website at MCCFW.org. We are also on socials, including Instagram, X, and Facebook. We are at the MCCFW. So please do visit us online, keep in touch. And if you have a question, please feel free to tag us and submit it on any of the social platforms. Or if you want to submit your question in a more private space, you can go to mccfw.org/contact, submit your question there, and we may include it in a future edition of Office Hours. All right. I'm going to check the comments just to see if we have any questions that have come up during the broadcast. And I see none from Facebook or YouTube. So I'm going to go ahead and end this broadcast. Once again, I'm Dr. Tisa Silver Kennedy, founder and executive director of the Maryland Center for Collegiate Financial Wellness. And I thank you so much for your support and engagement during office hours and everything else that the center has to offer. Until next time, please be well and take care.